Hey Hunters, Halo Zoo here for another One D&D class comparisons for the best and worst stuff of various things. This time we're talking about mages and the sorcerer, the first one we're going to go over. Uh, and we're probably going to do wizard next actually because warlock I am almost certain is going to be the longest of videos. uh, I would make a bet if it's I would be willing to bet on it. I'm not gonna actually make any bets because I'm smart, but because if I do, it's not gonna happen. But we'll see. But today we got the sorcerer to start off with, so let's go into it. So not much has changed with the spellcasting, except it's time to come back to this. Why? Why do you call it prepared spells when it's still spells learned? Why? This is the worst change they've added, where it's like, why? Please, no. Go back to spells known. Also, subclass is at 3rd frickin' level. Great. I hate it. Because sorcerers, more than any other class, have a lot of stuff tied. Like, their very origin is tied to their subclass. So picking it, waiting until 3rd to get it, not great. Then we get innate sorcery, which kind of a mixed bag here. So on one hand, we get Sorcerous Burst for free. My one complaint with Sorcerous Burst is that as of now, it can interact kind of weirdly with certain builds. But getting a free cantrip, awesome. Getting free Chaos Bolt. Okay, I appreciate the idea of, hey, here's a extra first level spell you just get for free at first level. It's fine. Chaos Bolt specifically, no, not a fan. If it was Chromatic Orb and you could cast it for free without the material component, that'd be great. I mean, Chromatic Orb could probably lose the material component anyway, but I digress. Chaos Bolt, though, I don't want it. I only want that on Wild Magic Sorcerer. Like, it's just not good for anyone else, really. Like, Dragon Sorcerer, I don't want it because I want to do a specific damage type. I never want to cast Chaos Bolt because I can't rely on it doing the damage I need it to. It's like, sure, it could do my preferred damage type, but chances are it won't. There's like a 1 in... I think it's ultimately 1 in 8 chance or something. I don't know the percentages, but it's kind of a... Because you have basically 2 1 in 8 chances plus a 1 in 8 chance. I don't know this. Like 1 in 16 chance to trigger a to get both. It's some weird percentage to get, but basically it's kind of a unlikely chance to be able to get the damage type you want, so I don't want it on Dragon Sorcerer. So it's kind of useless, and it's just extra spells. That's all innate sorcery is. So, not amazing. It's not the worst you could get, but I'd still rather have something more interesting here. Sorcerer's Burst is nice, though. And it's the first new spell we have here. Not going to go too deep into it, but basically, this version, it's d6 damage of a type you choose. And if you roll a 6, you get to roll more dice equal to your spell mod. And once again, I get to make the joke that I all but guarantee you I will get a max damage Sorcerous Burst, or max dice Sorcerous Burst, roll the last dice, get a 1, and leave an enemy at 1 HP. I can see it coming from a mile away. Because that would happen to me. Like, because, like, the first major time I left an enemy at 1 HP, it was literally I rerolled a dice when an enemy was at 2 HP from a 1 to a 2. And it got left at 1 HP. It was so stupid. Oh boy. But this one, it also kind of has the problem that when you don't get extra dice, it's pretty bad. Because instead of just D10 for a damage-only spell, you're rolling D6s. Which is an average of 2 less with a... Or it's 4 less maximum. And I think... Oh, what would the minimum difference be? Because the minimum would be 5.5 or 2 less than the minimum. Yeah. So yeah, it's, and that's per dice, but it's fine. Like, you get to take advantage of vulnerabilities, of course, which is also fun. But I think it was kind of for first pass, it was cool. Like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. It's such a cool design where it's like, oh, you can do lots of damage with this, or you can kind of be behind on other cantrips. It's fine. It was fine in this version, but there's potential for growth where if you don't get the extra dice, which is a 5 out of 6 chance per die, then it's not as good as others. But it's a fun one. I will say that, it's fun. Which is always nice. Of course, learning spells, exactly the same as before. It's just the number of spells known, I think, scales up a bit differently. Like, you get 2 extra spells learned at 2nd level and 3rd level. You get additional 2 at 5th and 9th for some reason. I don't know why it wouldn't be at 7th as well, but that's the world we live in. You then also skip over some later on. And yeah, the numbers are kind of weird. Like, you skip over and then suddenly 17th beyond, you get 1 per level again. But I feel like you could fiddle with the numbers and like when you get extra spells, but it works, you know? Font of Magic, 2nd level. Font of Magic. They did restrict the level you can do stuff, so you have to have a minimum level, which I'll admit I didn't realize you could do before, but apparently you could actually make a spell slot of a level you couldn't cast yet. But that's a thing, apparently. And it's been removed. So, yeah. And Meta Magic is now at 2nd level. So, and you can replace them with a Long Rest, which, I mean, I didn't really need that, but okay, that's nice. It's there. It's not a necessary thing for the most part, but nice to have. And you start with 3. And then you get, I think you get 2 each time you get it later. But oh yeah, 13th you get 3 more actually, but you only get 1 extra set. So then we have subclass at 3rd level. Thanks, I hate it. All the classes should have been moved to 1st level, not this. But I digress. And Sorcerer easily has it the worst, by far. Especially with how kind of bland they are until then. Like, sure, you have Sorcerer's Burst, which is cool, but you could get that and have your subclass still. It'd be fine. Chaos Bolt, I only really care about that on 1 build. Nobody else I care for it. And my suggestion was maybe make it where you do choose your subclass at 1st level, but it's just for the 2nd spell. Like, the 1st level spell is changed by your build, where it's something you actually care about. An idea I then used in 5.5 with the new Sorcerer changes. But here it's like, yeah, no. No, it's really bad. Feat, then Sorceress Vitality at 5th level. Oh, yay, a self-heal. But wait, it eats up my spell slots and is actively bad. Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking with the balancing on this. Because, sure, I can cure a condition with this, but I would rather it have the same dice as number of dice as a healing word or cure wounds. Or at the very least, have a bigger die. Like, then it'd be okay. But no, it's 2d6 as an action. Yeah, no, I cannot. No, it's just bad. I get you're not supposed to be good at healing, but 3d6 would have been fine, in my opinion. Because, like, yeah, I'm using my action to only be able to heal myself. So, yeah. Subclass feature 6. This is what it is. Arcane Eruption. Once again, a spell as a feature with no extra uses. And that's another thing that should be specified. Like, I'm actually okay with them if there's a free use or something else going along with it. Not just, oh, you get the spell, that's it. Arcane Eruption, though, is actually decent. The biggest problem it has is it's 3 dice behind a fireball of the same level, which isn't exactly great. Sure, it's variable damage and has the randomized effects, but oh well, it's fine. Arcane Eruption, at least as a spell, I like it the most because it feels better. It feels like it fits on Sorcerer and it fits in with what you're trying to do. And it should be no surprise that it's one of the 2 that survived. Yeah. There were 4 Sorcerer exclusive spells, and well, actually, no, there was 5 Sorcerer exclusive spells. 4 of which were new. Half of the new ones survived. And Arcane Eruption is the second one alongside Sorceress Burst. Which brings us to Sorcery Incarnate, which definitely did not survive because good riddance. Basically, for a spell slot, you can buff your spell casting potential. Kind of. Really sucked. Like, I'm going to show this off because it is relevant to the next one. The next Unearthed Arcana. In Playtest 7. But Sorcery Incarnate. 2 meta magic per spell. Whoop-de-doo. You get 1d4 sorcery points back, which, meh, it's fine. It'd be nice if it was a set number rather than random, but it's not bad. And you only get advanced on spell attacks. Okay, great. Doesn't buff my saving throw spells, which by 9th level, I'm starting to do less and less of, because there's not many spell attacks at high levels, so yeah. And the sorcery point stuff is like, it'd be nice if I wasn't spending a 5th level spell slot to do Sorcery Incarnate. It's bad. Especially because, like, yeah, using a spell to interact with spells, it's not quite wizard levels of what the heck is this? Of awkwardness where it's like, wait, what? But I'd say Sorcery Incarnate is actually worse mechanically. So yeah, no, I don't want this as a spell slot. I want this as not a spell that's taking spell slots. Additional meta magic, 3 more meta magic options. Just doubling your options. It's your only additional meta magic, but it's fine. You change them as a long rest anyway. 14th, final subclass feature. Whoop-de-doo. 15th level, Sorcerer's Point Rest, Sorcerer's Restoration. When you roll initiative or finish a short rest, 4 sorcery points. Yay! This is actually nice. Even if by this time you don't really need it as much, because it's early levels that sorcery points are really strict. To the point that I think you could give them some more by default. Like maybe they have start with 2 more, and go from there. But it is what it is. And heck, you could even remove the making spell slots part. That's fine. You don't really use the spell slots. And I will also say, the spell slot part's actually kind of more useless in this version because you get meta magic, which is just better. Like, there's no reason to ever use these except when you first got it because you didn't have meta magic yet. But here it's like, no, you get meta magic already, so no reason to not use it. Sorcerer's Restoration is like, you don't worry about it as much, but it is nice to be able to say, oh, I do a short rest, I get 4 sorcery points back, boom. I'm able to keep going. And keep going decently well, too. Arcane Apotheosis, you always have Wish known. And you don't lose the ability to cast the spell if you undergo this casting stress. And you can use cast Wish at 1st through 8th level to replicate any spell. Once per day. Which, it's neat. But, like, you know, it's something at least. But, it's a neat idea. Though, I don't think it's a neat idea. It does feel kind of epic, where it's like, yeah, it's, you know, you're casting frickin' Wish. It's Wish. Of course, you will have to retrain if you got this, if you already got Wish at 17th, but, it is what it is. But on to the meta magics. So some changes happened. Careful spell. Basically, you give them auto success and no damage. So basically, just ignore them. I still feel like this should be even better than the Evoker Wizard deal because you are spending a resource on it rather than just automatically doing it. Distance spell, absolutely busted. So the problem with distance spell is it says at least 5 feet. Guess what spells this works with? Oh, let's look. Oh, it works with Thunderclap and Sword Burst. Also, Word of Radiance, though it's not easy to get that without multiclassing. I say that with the caveat that you could literally one dip into Warlock and get Pact of the Tome, which you can still do, by the way. And then you can get Word of Radiance, which is even more busted with this, because, yeah, you add, for 1 sorcery point, you can extend this range of those spells by 30 times your sorcerer level. Suddenly, your Thunderclap is hitting absolutely everything around you in a massive explosion that is at least 65 feet. Yeah, I get the idea they were going for, but yeah, this one, it kind of unintentionally broke some spells that I don't think they were worried about. They were thinking where this probably should have had a 10-foot minimum to specifically avoid breaking those spells. And of course, if it has ranged touch, it's only 30-foot range. Yeah. That one got kind of silly. Where I get the idea that they went with, but it kind of backfired. because they ended up doing something even more busted than they intended. Empowered spells, empowered spell. I don't think it... Oh, extended spell. Also buffs concentration, which... Yeah. It makes sense that it would help you with concentration and keep the spell going for the duration. Heightened got cheapened by 1 sorcery point from 3. Thank you. It was really expensive before. Quickened spell. Yeah, it specifies you can't how casting multiple bonus action spells worked. So it doesn't work with cantrips though, which is weird, but yeah. It should say basically you should be able to use cantrips and a first level or higher spell interchangeably, because you can actually cast a cantrip as an action, then first level spell as a bonus action. You should be able to do the reverse, but that's a whole other discussion. Seeking spell. It's here from Tasha's. Perfectly fine. Subtle spell. It's subtle spell. Transmuted spell is back, and I still don't like it. With the main problem being it only works on these 6 damage types. Whoop-de-doo. And you can only change it to another of those 6, which, once again, whoop-de-doo. Then again, it would be crazy if you could do Force, but I also don't like it because I'm spending a sorcery point on this. Some people I know are like, oh, this is great. Why wouldn't you be using it? I'm like, I want to spend my sorcery points on something that actually buffs my spell. I want to make it more accurate with heightened or seeking spell. I want to do more damage with empowered spell, even if I still somehow don't kill stuff with it. I want to use distant spell, though this one is actually really busted and actually worth using on stuff like Thunderclap, where it gets stupid. And then twinned spell. I'll be honest, people really hated this version. I have to say, I'm fine with this version. And as we'll get into, this one was better. By far. My only caveat would be, I would like if this also interacted with quickened spell. So my idea here is, when you twinned spell, by default, it's you spend 1 to 5 sorcery points equal to the level of spell you just cast to cast it on the next turn. My idea is, what if you could combine twinned spell with quickened spell? So if you do both, so like you basically spend 2 plus the level of the spell to cast it twice in a turn using your bonus action. So it's like 3 sorcery points to cast a first level spell twice in a single turn, where they combine together to do something, to give you kind of the old twinned spell that they were like, this version's too powerful because it was cheaper, where you could cast 2 spells of first level or higher in a single turn without a bonus action. So this one, you're using your bonus action as well, so you can't do anything with that, to double a spell, basically. Which I think is a much better interpretation of it, where you don't have the busted version. It functions with any spell you want it to, and you're able to split it out as you wish. And it has the balance of, yeah, by the way, you're spending 3 sorcery points to do this. So I think it's fine that way. That'd be much better. So then we get to playtest 7. So that was playtest 5. Overall, base stuff, yeah. Metamagic was overall better, with one kind of stinker, but that's mostly because of a simple oversight that kind of screwed up stuff up. I will also say real quick on the sorcerer's spells known. I would have appreciated if they moved an extra spell known to first level, so you start with 3 again, because you do actually lose that where you don't have any more spells known. So whereas before you had 5 cantrips and 3 first level spells known, this version you only have 4 and 2, which not great. I would have liked if they moved the instead of having 2 extra spells learned at second, you only learn 1 extra, but you start with 3. So it's like it goes 3 to 4. So you still know 4 at second level. It's just you get 3 to start off with rather than 2. And then getting 2. And then also the same kind of awkwardness of when you get 2 spells known is still here. Like, you don't get 2 spells known at 7th, which feels like you should. Especially because, like, you get 2 at 9th. Why don't you get 2 at 7th? It doesn't make sense. And then getting 1 per level beyond 17th is like, you don't really need it. Like, because it slowed down, then it speeds back up. What? And I wouldn't mind if you got 2 spells of up to 6 through 8. And then 9th, you didn't get the second 9th level spell until 19th. So it's like you get to 20 and then it's 22 here. Or like you get 21 here and then it's 22 here. So you don't get one at 18th or 20th. But going through the class features, Innate Sorcery is basically a mini it kind of does some of what Sorcerer Incarnate did, but that's now Innate Sorcery. You don't get the cantrips known, the Sorcerer's Burst for free, but it's okay. It's not terrible. It was nice to have Sorcerer's Burst for free, but I wouldn't mind if they just made it where you have 5 cantrips as well to start off with. So you can pick it up if you want to, but you don't have to. Because Sorcerer didn't really have cantrips known problems. They're not Warlock or, heaven forbid, Bard. Which somehow is worse than Warlock. And for reference, the one reason I say Bard is worse is because you only had Vicious Mockery as a ranged damage cantrip. Meaning, you were always taking Vicious Mockery. Warlock, at least, has the illusion of other choices. Sure, there's all these other options, like Chill Touch, which I wish was still ranged, by the way. Frostbite. Create Bonfire. Magic Stones. Which also needs some buffs, like Shillelagh. And should be a ranged weapon, in my opinion, but oh well. I digress. This is about Sorcerer. But yeah. So here it's like, it's not as bad. You've always had cantrip choices, so having one for free. I will also say I feel like that should be a mage thing where all the mages have a special cantrip they get. So sorcerers would have Sorcerer's Burst. Warlocks, of course, have Eldritch Blast because Eldritch Blast. It's always been their thing. And then wizards get a new one. Perhaps something that... perhaps just like an AoE burst cantrip. Or maybe it could also have some integration with... Maybe instead of having just one, you get to choose one of 8. And there's one for each school of magic, where it's this slightly different spell that has a different effect depending on your school of magic, the school it's from. So a necromancy one might give you temporary hit points. Evocation might do more damage, or it might have a variable damage type that you get to choose. Abjuration might have a defensive bonus. Conjuration might summon something that harries the foe. or it just might just create difficult terrain. I don't know. But with this innate sorcery, what it actually does, so cantrip losing that, meh. Losing the first level spell, my main issue is that you have only 2 spells at first level now, which kind of sucks, but not the end of the world. But instead you have a innate sorcery, which twice per day, you can use a bonus action to enter this state of heightened magic for 1 minute. Kind of short duration, but oh well. And spell save DC for your spells is increased by 1, and you have advantage on spell attack rolls. Right off the bat, I like that they added a save DC thing, but I wish it was more than just 1. Like, +1 is barely useful at all. And keep in mind, it's a +1 the entire game. It doesn't even scale. Which, to be fair, like the spell attack stuff doesn't scale, but that's because it's just advantage. How do you scale from that? So my main critique would be, I wish it was just a +2 to both. So it's an equivalent bonus, and the chances of it being relevant are higher. Plus, it lets you stack with other sources of advantage, like guiding bolts and stuff, which I think would be nice. And having advantage for a whole minute is kind of crazy. Spellcasting, still using the absolute garbo. That is the prepared spells instead of learned. Also, another change is that all the utility spells they gained in Playtest 5, thanks to having the straight-up arcane list, that's gone. They're back to the old list, which I'm actually fine with, because in practice, it doesn't really matter much. And there's 2 spells with Sorcerer's Burst and Arcane Eruption staying. So they just have those now. Sorcerer's Burst also got upgraded to D8s, which I kind of prefer, because while it's less likely you get the extra dice, being a 1 in 8 rather than 1 in 6 chance to get it a max roll, I do prefer it because the lower chance of it going well, not amazing, but I do like the idea that it's not as bad if you don't get it. Where it's just like, oh, you didn't roll the max? Well, it's still a decent cantrip that's just 1 behind on average compared to your firebolt and stuff. And it's 2 behind max, and that's per dice, of course, as always. But it's nice. Arcane Eruption, meanwhile, didn't really change at all, which kind of sad. Could use an extra dice just so it's not 3 behind Fireball. But everything else, perfect. Font of Magic, it's Font of Magic. Meta Magic is Meta Magic, but you only get 2 now. However, instead of just getting 3 more at 13th, you get 2 more at 10th and 17th. So, and you can no longer change them on a long rest. You have to gain a sorcerer level, which, fair. It was kind of weird that you could prepare them like a wizard prepares spells when you're a learned caster. So this version, I'm fine with. It functions nice enough. So, yeah, this kind of smooths out the progression where you get the same number, but it's kind of in multiple little chunks instead of just 2 big ones, which I'm fine with. Sorcerer subclass is still at 3rd level. I still hate it. And I also, once again, have to point out, why the heck were these 2 brought in? They don't need a reprint that bad. Like, Clockwork, I would have appreciated if you at least gave them Shield of Faith instead of Alarm. Thank you very much. But no, they're both here and unchanged. When Storm Sorcery, for example, really needs the update. Please. Just please update Storm Sorcery. And as we'll get into it, there's a lot more going on with that with Draconic Sorcery. 5th level is now Sorcerer's Restoration, so you get it earlier. And it starts out at 1/5 your level. Yeah, this sucks. So, my main critique of this is, while it's nice you get this earlier, the scaling sucks. So, whereas before, you would get this at, I believe, 15th level, you get the 4. This, you get it at 5th, it starts at only 1. And it upgrades at 10th, 15th, and 20th. This means at 15th, you're down by 1 sorcery point per trigger. Yeah, and this is only when you have none remaining, which is also kind of annoying because sometimes you have less than the number you would regain. So, like, let's say you're 15th level and you have 2 sorcery points remaining. You have 1 sorcery point remaining, let's say. Well, you lose out because you don't have none remaining, so it's not going to give you any, even though you would have more if it triggered. But, no. So once again, I feel like it should set it to that number. So, if it's that or lower, it becomes that number. So it's like, if you have less than, like at 15th level, you've had less than 3, then you would get 3. You'd have 3. So it just sets you to 3 instead of just, oh, if you have none remaining, then do this amount. Not great. But I would also say make it 1/4 your level, rounded down. So mostly because this would scale much better, and it would be on par with what you got before, where by 15th level, you just have to wait 1 more level to get the 4 points, because you'd have to wait till 16th. But it scales up at 8th, 12th, 16th, and 20th, and it actually goes up to 5 sorcery points. So you would actually get 1/4 the number of sorcery points at 20th level, and it kind of scales better, where it's like, yeah, you get them a good amount at 20th level. Around the time you'd get the 4, it's like, yeah, you get that. It's just the 1/5 kind of scales way too slow, in my opinion. 7th level is a Sorcerer Incarnate, except it's not just a spell. So basically, while innate sorcery is active, you use 2 meta magic instead of 1, and if you have no uses of innate sorcery left, you can spend 2 sorcery points to activate it again. Second part might as well not exist to me. I do not want to use it. So instead of giving you sorcery points, now it takes sorcery points. Thank you very much. I don't like it. Especially because it's like, I don't have more sorcery points known. Like, more sorcery points per day. So, you're asking me to use more sorcery points than before when I don't have more sorcery points than before. It's just kind of straining a resource and stretching it even further. At least the old one gave me sorcery points, so I didn't have to worry as much about having 2 meta magics in a single spell and spending more sorcery points on it. So yeah, it's the first part, it's nice. The second part, if only you had more sorcery points. Then all the way at 20th, because you don't get anything in between here that's new. Arcane Apotheosis. While innate sorcery is active, you can use 1 meta magic option each turn for free. I mean, it could be better, but oh my gosh, is this cool. Like, it would be nice if it came earlier, but it's still pretty cool. It's like, oh yeah, 1 meta magic for free while innate sorcery's up. Though I do think another critique I have is that innate sorcery could probably last longer, or at the very least, give it like a 10-minute duration by default. Or it could also have an increasing duration, like maybe later on it goes up to an hour, or maybe even 4 hours or something, I don't know. But basically give it better duration instead of making it cost sorcery points to activate again. But it is a very cool thing of free meta magic. It's free meta magic. It's cool. So some changes. Oh yeah, also I forgot actually. Because it's changed in the next one. The subtle spell could remove material components. It said that material components that are consumed, which does not cut out some, which this version, it actually specifies that if it has a cost, then you have to have it. So if it's a costed component, you need it still, which fair. Seeking spell is now cheaper, kind of keeping in it with its cost of 1 less than heightened. Perfectly fine and useful. It's definitely nice to have cheaper options. Distance spell is now doubling range again. Yeah. Because it turns out having at least 5 feet and making the range absurd kind of breaks some spells in unintended ways. And the double range, I think, is fine, because it means that longer ranged, that the spells get a bonus equivalent to what they, relative to what their actual range is. So, which I think is overall better in general, and of course doesn't have the busted interactions of spells that were very short range suddenly having absolutely massive ranges. And twinned spell. I hate this. So basically, instead of being an ability that works with any spell, it now only works with spells that... It now lets you upcast spells that could be upcast to target more people. That's not twinning a spell. That's just saying, oh, it targets more people. Also, I would rather have an upcasting deal that worked with any spell and could upcast any spell and was something different. My idea is that, and I've already mentioned this before, but take this twinned spell, make it work with anything, not just stuff that upcasts for more targets. Make it heightened spell. Heightened spell gets renamed to inescapable or inevitable spell or something like that. And then have the previous twinned spells, which I actually prefer, bring it back and make it work with quicken spell. So if you do both twinned and quicken, you get 2 first levels, 2 of the same spell in a turn. So that is the meta magic. Now, draconic sorcery. Right off the bat, you'll notice their 3rd level stuff is pretty much the same stuff you got at first. Now, there are some positive changes to mention. For example, instead of a flat bonus to your AC, it's now a bonus based off your charisma modifier. So basically, you get the monk's unarmored defense, which I'm happy with. I think this is a lot better, especially because it can be increased later on. So, and that's just without worrying about your dexterity. So, that means you have, at first level, it's probably 3 plus, still 13 plus dex, but later on, it's up to 15 plus dex. And you can usually get up to 15 plus dex at 8th level, usually. which I think is definitely pretty cool. I mean, it's Draconic Resilience still. It kind of does what it did before. It's just that third level. Yay. Dragon Speech. So instead of Draconic Ancestry, they made this. So your dragon ancestry doesn't matter anymore. You don't pick it anymore. Which I get, sure. It didn't matter at first level, which kind of sucked. But my problem is, and then also you used to know the Draconic language. Now you just always understand dragons. Like, dragons always understand you, you always understand them. The heck? Why don't I just know Draconic? That I mean, I don't like learning languages and stuff at higher levels from your subclass and stuff, but this? Ugh. It's just so weird. Like, what is this? Why? Yeah, it's... Ugh. This version, so bad. And 6th level, Elemental Affinity, it kind of does what it did before, except now you choose the damage type here. So basically you just choose the damage type. And then you get resistance to that. And add plus charisma to damage rolls with that element. Okay. Not amazing. Just, yeah. I mean, it is what it is. And, you know, it's good. I just think, personally, I'd actually split this up into two. So, the resistance part, move it to 3rd level with Draconic Ancestry returning. It has a Draconic language. You get to choose your type again. It actually matters, so it affects your resistance, which means it instantly does something, unlike before, which was the problem with it. And then it also affects your future features, so Elemental Affinity, it affects what you do bonus damage with, and also has the room for, if you choose a dragon that doesn't do these 5, i.e. a gem dragon or something else, it can work, and you can be a Draconic Sorcerer of those dragons, which this kind of went backwards on. And it's actually something in general that I've disliked about One D&D, trying to make it where it's just these 5 for dragons. No, please let me choose my dragon type again. Like, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. You had it right the first time. Or, well, in Dragonborn it was... The breath weapon at least was right the first time. Then, the second time, they kind of derped it up with the breath weapon shape being determined by whether you were metallic or chromatic. And then made it the dumb choice, but that's a whole other discussion. But here it's like, it's just kind of meh so far. 10th level, though. Draconic Exhalation. What a cool feature. Like, I love this. It's just so cool. Like, oh, hey, you have Sorcerer's Burst. Here's a new way to use it. My only complaints... Like, I have 3 complaints. A, it's always a cone. When certain dragons, literally half the metallics and chromatics, use a line breath. So I would like if this had the option of being a 30-foot line, and I would even tie that into choosing your dragon ancestor. So that's the first problem. Second, it's at 10th level. I would have liked if this was at 6th alongside Elemental Affinity, and if the resistance part was moved up to baseline with Draconic Ancestry. I think it would fit perfectly, where it's like, yeah, also it would require Sorcerer's Burst being default again, but I think it should be default, and have that be a mage thing that all mages have a special cantrip. Sorcerers have Sorcerous Burst. Warlocks get Eldritch Blast. Wizards have something new. And then my third problem with Draconic Exhalation, it doesn't make them melee attacks. So this leads to an awkward moment where if you Draconic Exhalation in melee, which with the cone only you really want to do, you actually get penalized because you're in melee. Kind of an unintended consequence of it. So I would love to see this. Like, I love this idea where you have a Dragon Breath. Like, the Dragon Sorcerer finally gets a cool Draconic thing in the Dragon Breath. Where it's like, yeah, you now get a Dragon Breath attack. Boom. Beautiful. I love it. It's a shame they got rid of this, which we'll see. Dragon Wings. It's now tied to Sorcery Incarnate. Well, I did like the idea that, oh, you know, like, you have this thing that happens. This special feature. And it's like, okay, you know, you have this spell. We know you have it. We're going to give you buffs for it. That's a cool design, but... And I like the idea that, oh, each one gets different things going on while Sorcery Incarnate's active, which, as kind of derpy Sorcery Incarnate on its own is, the idea that there's various bonuses while in Sorcery Incarnate is cool, where here the wings were tied specifically to Sorcery Incarnate, which, I'll be blunt, I actually don't mind, because Storm Sorcery exists. Let Storm Sorcerers fly all the time. Like, let them be the guys flying all over the place, and also let them be more of the ranged casters. Let Draconic, you know, they don't get their wings all the time, but they're also a much more up-in-your-face kind of build, which Draconic Exhalation actually does. Like, that's such a good inclusion, where it's like, yeah, you want to be up close now. Something Draconic doesn't do, despite having the better up-close and personal feature in Draconic Resilience. But instead, Storm does it, and it's... Ugh, I hate it. Also, with Draconic Dragon Wings here, you can flap the wings at the end of each turn, and just do more elemental damage to creatures in 15 feet. Once again, I actually like this. It's great. Like, yeah, I want to be up close. I have the HP. I'm much tankier than a normal sorcerer. I get to be up close. Yes, give me melee Dragon Sorcerer. It makes so much more sense, because they already have the perfect starting feature for the melee build. Let them be the melee build over Storm. This is also why I think Storm should have been here. So it can be the ranged skirmisher now, and Dragon gets to be the melee caster, which I think they fit better. So this version has some kind of blunderous things, but I do like the idea that Dragon Wings was tied to Sorcery Incarnate, and I wouldn't mind if it came back. But, you know, people were like, oh, great, you know? It's like, oh, you fight at 14th level. But, looking here, absolute BS that they couldn't have you fly all the time. Because it's the same exact level. The heck? It's not the 18th level feature. And also, as a general thing with this, I'm not happy with the reversion here. Like, Dragon Resilience, it's the same. Fine. Dragon Speech, at the very least, you now know Draconic, and your speech is always understood by dragons, so... I mean, it's kind of redundant with the fact you can speak Draconic, but I do like the idea that you just know Draconic. Like, that's... The previous one was just like, wait, why don't I just know Draconic? I'm associated with dragons, but I can't read Draconic? So, yeah. Dragon Speech, at least they gave Draconic back. I still wish it was Dragon Ancestry and had the Choose Your Ancestor. Elemental Affinity is still Elemental Affinity, which I wish the Resistance was part of Dragon Ancestry. 14th is Dragon Wings. So, yeah, they got rid of the coolest thing. Like, Draconic Escalation was the coolest thing. Like, sure, it had its problems, but it was such a cool idea, and that's gone. In Dragon Wings, they also lost the wing flap part. It's now just, oh, you can fly all the time. Whoop-de-doo. It's just boring. And Draconic Presence returns, which I don't care about. I don't want to spend 5 frickin' sorcery points to do something that my build doesn't care about anywhere else. Like, why do I care about charming or frightening people? Like, it's just, there could be so much better. Like, ultimately, I'd say bring back Draconic Exhalation at 6th level, move the Resistance to 3rd level, and combine it with Dragon Speech for Dragon Ancestry. Bring back the Choose Your Ancestor. Draconic Exhalation, its shape is determined by your Dragon Ancestor. So it can be a cone or line, depending on what theirs is. And then an Elemental Affinity, of course, cares about Dragon Ancestry again. Dragon Wings, meh, it's fine as it is. I like the wing flap part, where you could flap and burst of magic. But, eh. It could also be tied back to Sorcerer Incarnate if its duration is anything more than a freaking minute. That would be nice, but as it is, mediocre. But I don't really care. And then Draconic Presence, screw off, and just make it 5 sorcery points. You become a freaking dragon and get a buffed Dragon Breath and Dragon Claws. Like, that'd be so much cooler, because level 18 is like, this is my capstone. Spending 5 sorcery points to make an aura that charms or frightens stuff, even though I'm more of an elemental damage build everywhere else. The heck? Because at least turning into a dragon would be worth 5 sorcery points. As it is, your capstone might as well not exist, because you don't want it. It doesn't do anything for you. So, yeah, it's just, like, Dragon Speech, infinitely better, everything else. I'm so disappointed here, because it's going back to you're just a ranged guy with slightly better defenses. Leaving Storm to be the melee build, even though it really shouldn't be. It should be Draconic. You should care about getting up close in people's faces and using Draconic Resilience and taking advantage of it. That's what you should be. But no, they just tossed any good potential they had in the previous one. Like, the best part of it is gone. Not a fan. Just no. This is one of those where you had so much potential with that, and you threw it away. This one, it hurts me because it's one of my, like, top 3 classes to play. Ironically, none of which I'm playing right now, but that's just the way it ended up. But yeah, that is the Sorcerer of One D&D, looking at both versions. And we're almost at an hour, so yay. Can only imagine what the Warlock video is going to look like. But without further ado, I hope you all enjoyed this, and feel free to like and subscribe to keep in tune for the next ones, including the inevitable over an hour Warlock video. But we'll see if it actually beats this. But anyway, see y'all next time! Halo Zoo, out. I'm actually tempted to just let this end at like exactly an hour. So we're out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.